Okay, we're ready, Mr. Chair. Tape's rolling.
Okay. I'll call the meeting, the October, August 12th today, right? Meeting of the West Dakota
13th.
Water Development District.
It's the 13th.
Excuse me, it's August 13th, you're right. Call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item is the roll call.
Okay, roll call for West Dakota Water Development District, August 13th, 2024. Koth.
Here.
Bjerke.
Here.
Driscoll.
Here.
McGregor.
Aye.
Rowe.
Here.
Mack.
Here.
Kerr.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum, and areas 5 and 8 are vacant.
Yep.
We have 7, so just for your information, 7 means majority vote is 4, and 2/3 is 5.
Okay, thank you. The next item is the approval of today's agenda. Are there any items on the agenda today that need to be revised? Dan?
Yeah, item number 10, do you have the revised wording there? Dan, the need to approve funding is kind of an error on my part. I only included Rhodes Fork, but we actually need to act on Castle Creek above Deerfield also. So
I don't know if I caught, was that in the email?
it was in an email at some point in time. $35,685, I think, is the total over a 3-year time frame for Rhodes Fork and then Castle Creek.
Is that the only thing, or did you have something else too?
That was it. There's the wording.
Okay.
From Scott, if you need it, or the email date.
Okay. Are there any other items on the agenda that need to be revised? If not, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
Moved by Dan, seconded by
Second.
Craig. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You get to all that, Dan?
Okay, and you got the wrong file open, hold on a second.
Moved by Driscoll, seconded by Kerr. Motion carried.
Which item was that?
It's item number 3.
10 is where the dollar amount.
Oh, you're
changes.
talking about, okay, item 10, yes. The stream gauge funding,
So we changed the dollar amount?
yes, $35,685. And that is going to be the first vote too on that item, since it's over 25,000.
And did we added a stream gauge to that too, or did we not?
I could help you with the motion after the meeting if you want.
Well, I just want to make sure we're voting on it.
Right.
You said-
Yeah.
At Castle Creek above Deerfield.
Right.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Thanks for waiting.
Okay, moving right along. Item 4 is approval of the minutes from the July 9th, 2024 meeting. Any corrections need to be made on the minutes? Dan?
I wasn't sure, does it, item 2, who's present, does it need to be noted that I was participating via phone as opposed to in person?
Probably.
Probably so.
Yeah, I think we've done that in the past.
Right, I mean, I wasn't actually here.
Right.
And then, in terms of others in attendance, I know Dan said that Mark Klein had signed in as board prospect, is why it's worded that way, but he's actually the Area 8 Director-elect, so I
Correct.
wondered if we wanted to show it that way, even though he signed in differently.
And he is mentioned later too.
Right.
Yeah,
I'll
he is.
do whatever you want me to.
Let's call him Director-elect, since that's what he is. And he's referred to that as later.
Well, it does, under item number 16 in the minutes, it says, appreciates Mark Klein, Director-elect for District 8 attending.
So that's
That's what it
proves
says
that's
right
what he
now.
is. So we could just well list him that way on item 2, but I, of course, really don't care.
You put it that way, just change it to that.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, well, I got it in the motion. The Director Driscoll participated by phone, and Mark Klein should be listed as Director-elect.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, in the end here, what's that section called?
It was agenda item 2.
Okay. And so Director Driscoll participated by phone, and Mark Klein should be listed as Director-elect.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes from the July 9th, 2024 meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Scott. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Item number 5 is conflict of interest disclosure. Is there any items on the agenda today that there would be a conflict of interest of any of the directors? Seeing none, we'll move on to the treasurer's report. Dan?
Cheryl and I were just talking about our glasses, that's my problem.
There you go.
Okay, let me give you a microphone. Okay, I do. Okay, we got in savings and checking $308,854. That's at Black Hills Community Bank. Plus, we have an additional savings account with Raymond James of $2,056. And I found out our interest rate on our savings account is a little higher than I had told you earlier because it went up. So it's actually 1.49% now. And I changed the automatic levy deposit from the low interest account to the high interest account to make it easier, because I used to just move stuff around, but now it goes directly into the high interest account. And then our CDs are listed there. And if you total all that, we have $843,911. Our projected tax revenue will be $242,443, or $242,443. And For the expenditures, the non-project expenditures are $29,527, and that includes administrative contract for $16,793. And then for the water projects, the total expenditures to date, $36,000 or $36,015, making the total expenditures $65,542. And I might have a slight error here. I got the maximum tax levy this year, $249,756. I guess I probably have that listed incorrectly up above, so I'll fix that. For next year, if you approve the maximum request, it will be $264,755. And if there are no questions, going on to the projects, they're all listed there, so I won't go in any detail, but the total project obligations are $311,047. And then the next page, there's a Gantt chart showing the projects. The red ones are completed, so the blue ones are outstanding. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Okay, are there any questions for Dan on the treasurer's report? Seeing none, a motion for approval? Moved by Craig, is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Ron. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you, Dan. All right, that moves us to item number 7, second vote. Approve up to $200,000 in funding by West Dakota over a 3 to 4 year time frame for an EPA Section 319 watershed improvement project in partnership with the South Dakota Department of Ag and Natural Resources. Dan, that's your item.
So everybody's by now no doubt familiar that we've been working towards an application for this watershed improvement project. On page 11 of your packet, there is a table that's basically a preliminary budget. It's certainly subject to change. Between now and October 1 is the deadline for submittal, but you know, unless something would come up and change, I think we're pretty comfortable with this. Basically, Chris Dozark from DANR started us out with a bit of a template, and then, you know, Ron and I had iterated on it. Ron had made a request that above and beyond some of the revegetation type work that we've been working on, within that table, there's about half to 2/3 of the way down in the second block, it's a product 6, implement engineered bank stabilization below Pactola, and I guess up above it was a product 3 to do the engineered design for a bank stabilization project. You know, Ron had requested that we insert, you know, basically an objective for that, and so, you know, Ron and I had iterated and, you know, bounced it back off of DANR, and they seem to be comfortable with it. In essence, there are columns after you get by whatever the item is, a little farther right, years 25 through 28. It's basically a 3-year project over a 4-year time frame. The project, if funded, would basically be starting about this time of year, maybe a couple months. Probably about this time of year. It takes quite a while for the wheels to turn. So it would terminate then in 2028. So it'd be 3 years over a 4-year span, a total of $1 million, and basically just preliminary estimates by year there. Then the columns farther right, indicate the sources of the funds. So out of a total of $1 million project, $600,000 would come from the EPA 319 program, requires $400,000 in non-federal match, and we had made a prior commitment for up to $200,000 in cash match, and then that would leave another $200,000 that would have to come from other non-federal sources. So I guess I'd hope that we could have by now an actual application ready to go. That's going to take a bit more time yet. I don't think it's critical for our vote. So I guess with that as background, I'll make a motion that we approve the funding for the $200,000 in cash match from West Dakota, and that would basically be contingent upon approval through DANR as part of the 319 process.
Hey, is there a second to the motion?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Seconded by Ron. I do have a question on the West Dakota soft. What is that, exactly is that?
Well, that would be a variety of things. I guess if we started at the top, that would be in-kind hours. So in many of these 319 projects, the intent would be that we would need to, in all likelihood, hire some sort of a project coordinator, but an awful lot of the upfront work probably will be done contacting these entities like I've been doing by myself, making arrangements to get started on these projects. Similarly, Ron's had his fingers in this bank stabilization program, so that would be an entry for project coordination. Farther on down, there's a product 2 non-engineered designs for small projects. So, certainly we envision for our bigger project at Star Village, we would need an engineering firm to do a design, but some of these smaller projects would not require such, and probably could be planned out by myself. And then product 5, implementing the non-engineered plans for small projects. That could be timed by directors being put in, or basically the volunteers that have helped us with other projects, or the landowners where we may be working, if they contribute effort. So there's probably a fair amount of opportunity for in-kind match, and so it's listed generically as West Dakota soft, even though it might include entities besides West Dakota.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure what that
Yeah.
that curtailed, but okay, thanks. Any other questions for Dan? Seeing none, this is the second vote on this item. So seeing no more discussion, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
All right.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 8 is an update on Green Valley Sanitary District wastewater system project. Scott Morris here to give us an update, I guess.
We've gotten both of our funding package back from USDA and RD. We got $5 million in grant loan forgiveness.
Steal this microphone.
You say 5 million?
$5 million.
Okay.
Just start over, maybe.
Okay. Department of Ag and Natural Resources, we got $2,763,000 in clean water SRF loan, which includes 100% loan forgiveness. We got $2 million in consolidated grant and another $237,000 in clean water SRF quality, water quality grant from them. And then USDA, we got $2,726,000 in grant, and then a loan of just under $3 million, of $2,996,000 loan at 2.75 for 40 years. So we got an awful lot of money for our project, so we're definitely moving forward. We signed the necessary paperwork to secure these funds. Right now, we're finishing up the survey, which a month ago was about 95% done, so it should be done currently. And then we got to revise our contract with our engineer to go from a gravity system to a pressurized system. And it's the board's feeling to move forward with this without a community vote, because the amount of financing or grant is so high, and it's going to meet our expectations of trying to keep it around $100 per resident for the assessment, the sewer bill, and now the state has asked us to include the maintenance of the pumps in with that, and that might bump us a little bit over $100, but we're still going to be really close to that.
$100 a month?
$100 a month, yeah.
That's quite a bit of money. I'm trying to add that up as you were saying it. You got a good.
What do they pay now?
Right now, we're all on septic, so.
No. Oh, okay, so.
That was the reason for the project. is
And do they
getting
have
them
an
off.
option to hook up or not?
It's mandatory. We have to have 100%.
Okay.
We're still trying to work through some of the details of finding out what the maintenance is going to cost, or what we're going to have to squirrel away for that each month, and that's probably going to be billed through the monthly sewer bill through Rusty, and then put it in a separate account for the maintenance.
So the $125,000 that we have set aside for that, are you going to need that for pay your engineer? Or?
Yeah, I was going to ask if we're far enough along now that we can get
It
that.
kind of sounds like it to me, but
Yeah.
I was hoping so.
okay.
Because we borrowed $200,000 on a short-term note to pay our engineer up to date, so we'd use that money to repay that loan.
Well, what's the rest of the board members think as far
What's
as?
the pushback from your members going to be if you don't submit it to them?
We're getting pushback. We're trying to address the legitimate concerns for the pushback. A big part of that was the maintenance of the pumps. They didn't want to be responsible for that.
Do your bylaws give the board clear authority to approve this?
Yes, unless they circulate a petition and get, I know it's over 50%, I believe it's 60% of the residents' signatures on that petition to force a vote. And this is the way the water system was done without a vote originally, so.
Have you had a meeting, a community meeting?
We've had 2 so far.
Okay.
And we plan on having more. About every 3 or 4 months, we want to have one to just kind of try to keep people up to date on where we're at and what's going on.
When does this become an official go then?
We got to get bids in before it's an official go. So we're probably over a year away from that point at this, because we still got to finish our final design, and then we got to present that. We'll have a special meeting, that way everybody can see the final design, and then we'll put it out for bid. And then once we get the bids back, then we'll have to decide whether or not we're going to proceed at that point.
So the bids could jack the monthly fee up even more.
Yeah, that's been a lot of discussion amongst the members and the residents. Is we're still just guessing on numbers until we get an actual bid, but we got to go through all these steps to getting the plans finalized before we can get to that point. So that's when we gotta take a hard look at it. And Jason kind of set a target of $100 per person is what he felt comfortable with. I feel like with what prices have done, because that was pre-COVID, what prices have done since then, I'm comfortable going a little bit higher than that, but not a whole lot. Mine is kind of around $125 a month. The biggest pushback that I see is a lot of people claiming that their septic systems are working properly, but there's really no way to tell because of the high groundwater issues there. And they think because their toilet still flushes that theirs is working fine. So
I
that's
think the history of that, even back when I worked for the city, there's tests of the groundwater that would certainly verify that you've got a problem with it.
yeah, they just say, well, it's coming from someplace else. It's not coming from mine.
So they'll still be able to keep their wells if they want to use that for watering their
Correct.
lawn and garden. and
Correct.
stuff, So,
And hopefully it'd make their wells a lot safer to use.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess the question is, as a board, when do we make the
Do we have
payment?
to do two
Well,
votes? here?
my question was, it sounds like you're well on the way, which is great, but you're still a little bit of blue sky on what the cost is gonna be and whether that's gonna be actually acceptable? Or is that, it's just a done deal no matter what?
It's not a done deal no matter what. Right now, I feel like there's probably a 90% chance that we're gonna move forward. I think our engineer's estimates are inflated a little bit, if anything. So I'm hoping that we'll come in under the estimate. And a lot of that'll depend, we're gonna maybe play with the duration of the project to maybe get a more favorable estimate or bids to give the contractor maybe 2 years to complete it instead of the 1.5 years that we think it's gonna take to complete. That's my feeling is we're probably at a 90% chance of this moving forward to completion.
What's the timeline between now and when you'll be, basically know the numbers from your bidding process?
We won't be able to start construction because we don't have quite enough time to get everything done before October to put in for the assessment on the properties. So that's gonna put us into doing the assessment, not this October, but following October. But I think we can get that paperwork in probably 6 months prior to when we have to have it in. So I'm just trying to push and get through all the steps right now. That way we can try and get ahead of that deadline. This would be up against it. So I'm pushing.
When is the final design supposed to be done?
I believe they're supposed to be done in 90 days from now. I'm trying to push them to get that done a little bit quicker because the pressurized system is a lot simpler to design.
Yeah.
It seems like based on some of our protocol under the board, we have to wait a little bit before we actually send money.
Yeah, I kind of feel that too.
I think
Just
we have to.
looking at your schedule, I would agree with that.
But it's only gonna take one vote, correct?
Right.
It's not gonna take another two.
No, we've already
Yeah,
voted.
we already
I think
voted, yeah.
we've
So
already
it's-
voted.
So it'll be a pretty quick,
We just have to
turnaround.
acknowledge though.
Just a vote to disperse
yeah,
what we've
just a
already.
burst, yeah.
I would say, we have a meeting in October and we have a meeting in December. And as you progress with your design, maybe you can come back, maybe at one of the next two meetings and,
I totally understand that because we're still trying to figure out some of the maintenance cost in this and making
Yeah.
sure that that's not going to put us over that.
you said 90 days, and maybe that December meeting would be a good time for you to come back.
Okay.
So you're thinking of going out to bid like in November, December for this, for construction? Am I understanding that right?
Right after the first year, we're hoping to
Okay.
get
Because the
bids back.
DANR's got to approve it first. their design.
Yeah, we got to, and I'm hoping that they kind of push it through too, because they want this
I'm
project to
sure
go.
they do.
It's
But
been
that does
too
take
long.
time.
Yeah.
You should have an
It's
estimate
still
by the engineers
it's
before.
February.
Yeah, and we'll have a more accurate engineer estimate when we get done with their final plans.
Did you have a question for Scott?
Yes, Scott, when you say maintenance, what does that cover? Does that cover the pump?
Well, the pump has a life expectancy of 10 to 20 years, and then there's a wear part in there called a stator, and that has a life expectancy of 10 to 15 years. So what we're currently looking at is every year having a contractor go through, our maintenance contractor go through, and he can look at the control board at every pump and look at cycle times of the pump and draw and determine if those parts are wearing out and try to replace them preemptively instead of waiting for them to go to failure.
Sure.
So that cost, that'll be built
Into their monthly bill, sewer bill.
Are those grinder pumps?
Yes, they are. And they're a different kind of grinder pump. Most grinder pumps are centrifugal, where they do a high volume and a lower pressure. And this is kind of a worm drive pump. The motor turns a lot slower. It doesn't do quite the volume, but it does a much higher pressure. And there's not really a pump curve with this. It's pretty much a straight line.
Okay.
So there's been some people saying, well, I can get a cheaper pump. Well, we're having to push our sewage about 2 miles. So we need I don't think we want to skimp on the pump.
No. Well, is there any more questions for Scott? Well, I appreciate you coming and giving us an update, and it sounds like you're heading in the right direction with your project. And
Yay.
Yay, finally.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Anyway, thanks again, and maybe if you want to come back into our December meeting, give us
Yeah.
an update, it'll be probably closer to your
It'd
bid
be the
meeting.
second Tuesday in December then?
Yes, yep.
So you signed in, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's item number 9, is the second vote on the Bar Deerfield Dakota study, partially funded through the Bureau of Reclamation. And Ron, that's your item.
Okay, so the contract for the bar portion of this study is on pages 13 through 17 of the packet. We talked about the scope and the focus on this a number of different times. As we get ready to vote on this, just as a point of interest, we're in the final stages of review of the whole agreement by the Bureau of Reclamation. We've crossed all the lines off on the paper we needed to for the getting our financial house in order and getting lined up with their contracting, et cetera. So that's well underway, and hopefully within the next month, we're going to have that approved so that pending this vote, we'll be able to get Bar out into the field for doing their field survey work before it gets too much colder into the late fall. So we voted last time, had a lot of discussion on this. This is the second vote. There's one item that is still in the contract that Scott was concerned about. We've talked about it as executive committee, and we've also talked about it with Miguel Wong, the president, our vice president of Bar, that we have our contact with, and we all agree that it's not applicable to this contract. But the effort to try and remove it through their legal office is going to be a delay that we don't really need to try and pursue. We all agree it's not applicable to a modeling project. This is applicable to a physical project where you may have some recourse if something is not done according to some specification. Doesn't apply to a modeling project. So with that in mind, I guess I would move to approve the second vote on the Bar Deerfield Dakota study, and that's for a $250,000 contract with Bar Engineering.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Driscoll. Discussion on the motion.
Is she willing to give us a statement in writing that she doesn't feel it's applicable?
I don't know about that. The vice president said he thought it was unapplicable.
Any other discussion?
Question on
Yeah.
Director Coates said for 250,000. Last time we said not to exceed 250,000. Should I leave it that way?
That's fine.
Okay.
Any more discussion on the motion?
Well, did Bar have any idea of how long it would take for them to review that, to get it out, or do something so that you had something from them that said this doesn't apply?
I don't know.
Didn't ask for a timeline. It's a standard part of their legal template. I'm guessing it'll be a while.
Yeah. Had a lot of guesses go the other direction.
Well, personally, I'm comfortable with this type of project as Ron just described, and also, Miguel, it's not, if we were constructing something, that, you know, something for Ron, if we were building something out there, but this modeling project is really, I don't know what could go wrong. Because the Bureau of Reclamation is gonna have to prove this anyway, so work from them. We got oversight from not only us.
I'm going to abstain from this as I have in the past, but I'll just say I'm never comfortable with bad lawyering. It always has a way of coming back and biting you in the ass.
Yeah. Anything else, Craig?
No.
All right, we'll call for the motion. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
All right.
Opposed, same sign, with one abstention from Scott.
Craig abstains.
Motion carries. Thank you, Ron. Okay, we're moving on to number 10. So this has changed a little bit from what's shown on the agenda here that we talked about under the approval of the agenda. It's approved funding for $35,685 over a three-year time frame for operation of the Castle Creek and Rhodes Forks gazing stations near Roxford, per joint agreement with the USGS. Is there a motion to approve?
I've got a couple questions about it.
Just because you want to, it's your item.
Well, I'll start out with just a little background.
Okay.
Throwing the motion out, I'll steer everybody to page 18 in their packet. The background on this was that a couple of years ago I'd raised the notion that the Rhodes Fork gauge, it's a continuous record gauge, recording multiple times per hour on a spring flow that's just about as close to constant as we find in nature, a very small amount of variability, and we've been funding that gauge for several decades now, and I felt we'd really knew enough about that one that we could cut it back to what's called a crest stage gauge. Basically, you'd obtain a peak flow measurement every year, and then it would be measured just periodically. And I'd raised that notion, and we ended up a year ago funding it for another year. Turns out that U.S. Forest Service really has a bit of a need for that continuous record. So they had stepped forward. They had funding of $26,400 available, as shown under the Forest Service amount there, that had to be allocated over a 3-year time frame. So I'm certainly very comfortable with the idea that, if they're going to put that much money into the agreement, I'm certainly comfortable in covering the other part of it. So typically we're also voting on the stream gauge above Castle Creek above Deerfield, and because they're combined on one funding agreement, it's most convenient to set up all three of those as a a 3-year funding agreement. So actually, one thing that it really does is, if you look at the funding totals for each year, I'm actually kind of surprised the inflation rate on those is quite a bit smaller than what I might have thought it would be. So we're, actually locking in I think a pretty reasonable price there. So anyhow, with that as background, I'll move that it needs to be a first vote since our total exceeds 25,000. So I'll move that we'll fund for $35,685 over a 3-year time frame. This funding agreement that also involves Forest Service, and then I guess this doesn't have to be part of the motion. Turns out that Bureau of Rec is also a partner on the gauge above Deerfield.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Cheryl. Discussion on the motion.
Is this the first go-around on these things where the Forest Service has helped fund it?
Yes. The Rhodes Fort Gauge had been entirely funded by West Dakota, pretty much ever since its inception, as far as I know. So
Why do we pay more than USGS?
I can shut down.
Galen's here from the USGS.
Slide that mic over.
Identify yourself, Galen, for the
Will
record.
do. Galen Hogenstraat, U.S. Geological Survey. So, just full disclosure, I'm Steve Fuller out of our office is probably the main contact for this. You'll see his name on the agreements, but I can speak to some of these things. So, like you point out on the funding table here, page 18, I'll kind of back up and get to that here in a minute. But basically, the bottom line is, as Dan said, Forest Service, this is their first year participating in the funding for the Rhodes Fort Gauge. Net effect is it's basically $5,000 less per year from West Dakota to fund that gauge. So the difference in kind of how this works with USGS funding is we can only match funding from non-federal partners. So on the table here, the two on the far left side, Forest Service, Bureau of Rec, we're not allowed to provide match funding on our part of that. So we're matching the West Dakota portion at a rate of about 40%, which is actually a sweeter rate than other cooperators. We're kind of our guideline is about 1/3, 2/3 for most of our projects. So that's actually a pretty higher rate than other
Is
partners.
that policy, or are you limited by statute?
We're limited by how much, basically the amount of match funding that's given to our center varies by year, and that's allocated by the federal government. So we have to take a look at our budget for the year and figure out how much we're able to match with other partners and kind of spread that around. And it's come to again, about 1/3, 2/3 is what works out to kind of keep everybody at about an equal rate. So it's not that 40% is uniform across all USGS. That's how it works in our center, just to make sure everybody's kind of on the same playing field. So, so that's kind of where that it looks a little funky where we're not matching the same on both gauges, and that just has to do with how the funding is set up between the two. And Forest Service, as Dan mentioned, they want to participate in funding for the Rhodes Fort Gauge. They had a set amount that they set aside to provide funding for that. And as Dan said, the Forest Service finds this one important because Upper Rapid Creek Basin, there's some potential exploration of mining activities. It's really important. I might have a slightly different take on it than Dan does. That we need to have that site be a continuous site so we can detect those very small changes in spring flow. If there's additional withdrawals in the Upper Rapid Creek Basin, 1 CFS is a big difference. If your average flow up there is 8 CFS, in Rapid Creek 1 CFS might not be a big difference, but it's a big difference to be able to determine that difference in annual flow in Rhodes Fork up there. So we're happy to see the Forest Service get into the mix here on helping fund that gauge. So.
Why is there such a big difference in the cost between the two gauges?
So the total cost, the very far right, they're about $16,000. So that when you add up all the differences, and again, it comes down to the difference between U.S. Forest Service and.
I mean, just for each individual gauge, why does it cost so much to operate the Castle Creek gauge than the Rhodes Fork gauge?
Right. So the total cost is $16,000 when you add up all the other entities involved. It comes down to Forest Service was able to contribute more than Bureau of Rec, BOR. So Forest Service, their amount, they were contributing $8,000 to $9,000 per year. That's kind of what they had reserved for it. Bureau of Rec, their budget had between $4,000 and $5,000 each year. So that's why West Dakota and USGS had to pick up a little more on Castle Creek compared to Rose Fork. And again, it's just because Forest Service wanted to contribute more on that one.
So USGS found money in its budget because the Forest Service wasn't participating.
So it's that ratio. It's that match ratio. So we try to keep that about 40% matching non-federal partners. So we're matching the same ratio.
And this data is retained by USGS.
It's public
I
data.
know that, but it's retained by USGS. That's the housing source for it.
Yeah.
Dan, do you have a question?
I'll throw just a little more insight. The total cost of the gauge is identical. For fiscal 25, both are $16,360, and then they both increment up to $16,540. It's just the various arrangements are different. In terms of the co-op program, if we turn back the clock 20 years ago, pretty much all of these stream gauges, when it was a non-federal entity like West Dakota, on the Rhodes Fork gauge, it was a 50-50 match. And USGS putting in the same amount as West Dakota. And basically what happened is that Congress has basically not been increasing the co-op funds for USGS, and I don't know if it's because USGS doesn't have the right political people at the top, lobbying for this or what, but in essence, the appropriation for co-op funding is remaining very close to constant, and as inflation drives the cost of the gauges or other things up, basically what's been happening is that in order to maintain these stream gauges, the cooperating entity, that's us, is forced to either, pay ante a bigger share of it, or in some cases, close them down or make other arrangements such as a crest stage gauge. So it's an unfortunate situation, but it's the reality of the politics on it.
I do have a question.
Yep.
On the Forest Service portion. Do they have an agreement with USGS?
Yep.
Okay,
So they kind of have a separate or a similar containing agreement.
No, they've been.
So that doesn't really have anything to do with us then?
They would have it. So that's kind of why we went to the 3-year agreements. They have identified this as a 3-year agreement, so it just made sense to match it with you guys. So it's basically we knock this all at once now, and then you don't have to talk to us for 3 years. So then we have that one.
That makes sense.
We have everything taken care of for 3 years, and again, the other point is our inflations. We're only figuring 1%. I don't know why we're doing that. We're basically it seems low to me, but I think we're kind of giving a bit of a deal on that one, because it seems like we should be charging more, but we're really only
The
giving
answer is
1%.
But you have a separate
resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have a separate agreement between the Forest Service and USGS. Okay.
Yeah, so we have a separate one with Forest Service, and they are a 3-year agreement, just like we're
Oh, okay.
proposing here.
I was just curious. That's all.
Yep.
Have we voted on this?
No.
Okay.
Tom's got a question.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
looking at the numbers, it looks like our share of these two items has dropped about $4,000 from the last year when we voted on this. So that's something I think is interesting, in locking that in for the next 3 would be nice to not have to.
I totally agree.
deal with that, but remembering that it was around 15, 16 was our annual.
The last 2 years, 2024 was 16,450, 23 was 16,080, so this year's 11,725 per, if you add up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, we're paying less. Okay, we're ready to vote?
And we dropped one gauge, right? We're only doing two total?
This has been the same
It's
too
been the
for
same.
quite a few years.
We talked about it, and that's why it looks like the Forest Service came in, because the one that Dan was suggesting was the one that the Forest Service is putting their funding,
Okay.
correct?
But I hadn't suggested eliminating the gauge, but
Yeah,
just
but changing
cut it
the-
back, cut
yeah.
it back somewhat.
Yeah, yeah.
When another cooperator steps to the table and helps share the cost, it makes perfect sense for us to.
And I think it needs to be continuous.
Well, I think that's a good partnership, the way I look at it. You get the Forest Service involved, and like I say, there's a lot of,
This is.
especially that mining
for how
thing.
long?
These gauges,
Okay,
probably the, let's say 80s, late 80s for.
I think 1986 or 7
Yeah,
probably
somewhere
is
around there.
long time
gauge
ago.
went in.
Good information now.
Okay.
All right. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Okay, by saying aye. Pose same sign, motion carries. Thank you, thanks for coming, Galen. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Stop back in October for the second.
Yeah. We'll be voting again in October. Okay, we're moving on to item 11. Approve the draft of 2025 budget and the 2024 Pennington County tax levy request. Ron, that's your item?
Okay, so we talked about, well, the budget at considerable length at our last meeting in July before it was actually published in our papers of record. And so on page 23 of our packet for today, you can see what was published in the our papers of record of the Wall Current and the Hill City Prevailer. And included in that budget is under means of finance, that first line where it says tax revenue. That is our anticipated default amount of tax revenue that we'll receive for 2024 in 2025. So that's a built-in part of our funding for our next calendar year budget. I'm not sure I want to really go through all of these things in detail, because as we have just seen with the USGS action, this is kind of a guidance budget. We already have changed the number for the USGS budget that we think we'll be spending in 2025. And all these other numbers are basically just estimates of what we're going to spend in 2025, particularly on some of these contracts related to the BOR study, because we'll be spending money in calendar year 2024 on them, so it's just kind of an estimate. And then Dan has gone ahead and he's prepared more detailed information that sort of outlines, where these summary numbers came from, as well as a historical view of where we're sitting each, calendar year since 2018 in terms of revenue, money on hand, and revenue dispersed during, that calendar year. So those are all informative items that go along with this summary budget that's on page 2023. But to move, I guess, towards, approval of this, I'll make a motion to approve the, as I said, preliminary budget, or adopt the 2025 budget as shown on page 2023 of our packet for the next year.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Cheryl. Discussion on the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move a substitute motion to approve the budget as proposed with the change in means of finance, that the last two lines be switched so that the capital reserve comes before the total. And the capital reserve import would stay at 91,984, but the total means of finance would then be 431,758. So it matches the budget expenditures.
Good catch. Well, as long as you're making an additional substitute, I did not include approval of the tax levy request in mine. I forgot.
Okay, and we'll add to that, and that we approve property tax levy request for funding of the 2025 budget of $264,775.
Okay.
Okay?
Did you get all that, Dan?
Move to approve
Yeah.
with modifications.
I was a little bit worried. I was a little bit worried about that.
Dr. McGregor, are you saying there's an error?
No.
Clarification, just.
He's gonna come up and, I was having trouble following too.
No, it's a good way to do it, 'cause you want your means of finance.
So this line
That's
here
kind of-
is for total.
Good break.
So that goes up
Showing
there.
this number.
And then the bottom line is
Yeah,
total.
yep. Okay. That's what I thought, but I wasn't real sure.
You know what that amount is? What's the pretty number?
And that becomes matches this number.
I think that is, I think that's for this CPA.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, maybe I'll ask her.
So that the total means of finance and the total expenditures.
No, but I think that's right. Ron can clarify that. Craig's got a question for you, Ron.
Yeah.
So what's the professional services line?
31,000.
That's me.
That is
I
our,
think your administration.
well, let's go back here to our more detailed sheet where it says.
Is that
administration.
the thing for the CPA?
No, there's none of that in there.
Okay, none of that in there, okay.
Administration, on page 26 of 30, there's a fairly detailed breakdown of what's included in administration, Craig.
Yeah.
Legal notices, office rent, memberships, conferences, utilities, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
That's administration. And then the professional services of the contract we have with our administrator.
With Dan, okay.
It's showing 31,000, on 26 it's showing 31,000 administration contract with Malawi.
Yeah, it's actually 30, but.
Oh, okay. Okay. Everybody clear as mud?
It's what's published.
So, we got a substitute motion. Was there a second to the substitute motion?
I'll second.
Who seconded?
I'll second.
Craig.
Nobody else does.
Craig.
The way Mr. Mullally has it typed up, he's kind of done it as like a friendly amendment as opposed to a substitute motion. Could we do it in that fashion and streamline things?
That's fine.
Is that okay, Scott?
That's fine if Ron will agree to it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Let's do that. So as you repeat the motion then?
Well, I have motion by Coles, seconded by Rowe to approve the 2025 budget with changes to preliminary fiscal year 2025 budget table and the pending county levy request for $264,775.
Everybody okay with that motion? Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, that moves us on to item 12. The board approval to post a 30-day announcement for the West Dakota Water Development District Administrator position. Well, that's your item too.
Typewriter must have got stuck on code.
Hopefully.
Okay, anyway, on page 28 of 30 and also continued on to page 29 of 30 is is the announcement that we're proposing to post on our papers of record and on our website for administrator search, given the request made by our current administrator at our last meeting to begin a search for a new administrator. So it's pretty much identical to the position description that we drafted in, would have been October of 2023, when at that time we thought we were gonna have to do a search, and then Administrator Mullally said, well, wait a minute, maybe I'd like to do this for a while longer. There's been a few little changes. We've, we have a $2,500 a month stipend now. Some wording in there that we all agreed to at one time about a CPI increase, for that over the course of a contract term of what we hope to be 3 years. I think that's kind of it in a nutshell. I know that there was some email circulating for maybe a little bit different description of the work in regards to the 20-hour work week, and I don't know if we want to handle that at this time and then make a motion to approve the amended administrative deal, or how you want to do that.
So I had emailed with everybody's suggested wording for item 2 under work hours and location. That, I guess my impression has been that, in many cases there's many weeks there's not actually 20 hours of work to be done. Whatever work is needed gets done. Our real anticipation seems to be that it averages out around 20 hours per week over the course of a year. So I'd suggested the wording that was in the email, as a more accurate description. So I guess I would suggest that, whatever discussion we might have on that we nail it down and then just approve it with one motion.
As a modification, yeah.
Right.
You could say 20-hour work week based on an average over an annual time period.
I don't have the wording. I'd have to look it up in the.
It's in the packet.
Is it in the packet? Okay.
Where is
Where is
it in the
Where is
packet?
it in the packet?
I think just
Well, agenda item 12 is in the packet, right? On
Yeah.
page
Oh, never mind.
28.
We were looking for some email that is circulated that contains some
Well, there
language.
is, the email's not in the packet.
No, okay.
But that item under work hours and location, number 2 there, are you saying that needs to be modified, Dan?
So I suggested this wording to replace item 2.
Okay,
Anticipated work effort is about 20 hours per week when averaged over a year.
okay.
Much of the work effort tends to be concentrated around meeting dates, parens, preparation and follow-up, close parens. However, other work effort can be quite unpredictable and driven by needs that arise throughout the year.
Everybody okay with that, changing that wording?
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Okay,
Okay.
Which, I saw it in the email, but was that today?
That was,
I just wanted to say
I think that was yesterday. I had a copy of it too.
Monday.
it was August 10th.
Okay, August.
August 10, I emailed that.
Saturday.
Yeah, it'll be Saturday.
So anyway, while you're looking for that, I'll move to approve the modified administrator position announcement for a placement in our papers of record and on the website.
Okay, is there a
I'll second.
Second the motion by Driscoll. Okay, discussion on the motion. Did you get the motion down, Dan, or not?
Oh, that was- Just trying to get this out of, which item are we on?
Under work hours and locations, item 2.
We're on agenda item 12, and,
Okay, so I've got Director Driscoll's email pasted in here.
Okay.
So,
I guess the intent is to post a small announcement in those newspapers, you know.
so is the motion to approve this wording with the
With changes as suggested by Driscoll's email. Would be about as short as we could cut it.
I think that if we just change it, we're averaged over 1 here, that's all we need in there. We don't need all the rest of that verbiage.
We don't need it in the motion. I think we want that wording in the advertisement.
We do?
That's had been my suggestion.
I think so, because that gives them, somebody bidding on this, a realization, okay, sometimes during the month, I'm gonna have a
Okay,
pretty good amount of work. And
I'm okay
other
with
times,
that.
I'm not gonna have that.
Yeah.
okay, I got it.
I think it's
Yeah.
good.
All
I
right,
like that.
so is everybody familiar with what the motion is? You ready to
Getting
go?
there.
You're getting there, okay.
So, motion, who made the motion?
Ron, seconded by Driscoll.
Motion by Coe, seconded by Driscoll for approval to post 30-day announcement for West Dakota Water Development District Administrator position with changes suggested by Driscoll. Will that cover?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. And then I've got those changes, and we can talk about the details there.
Yeah, we can work out
Okay.
how we want to do that.
all right, I think we're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, thanks for all the work you did on that too.
Here's the quiet man, he's doing all the text work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
during my vacation, in between fishing, I was
Yeah, you
doing
were,
the edits.
yeah, you got a lot of credit for that too, right?
We worked pretty hard on it back in October, so it wasn't quite as big a lift.
Right. Okay, item 13. Need board approval to authorize the executive committee to move funds from the local low-interest savings account to an account with higher interest rate. Just based on the committee, executive committee making that decision.
Is that really something the board has to do? Seems to me this is simply something the executive committee should tell the treasurer.
We just wanted to
We
make
want to
sure.
make sure everybody's happy.
We want to make, we want to make everybody aware of what we're
Is
supposed
this
to
a
do.
CYA thing?
Yeah,
Whatever you think.
yeah.
Yeah.
It probably got some truth there, but. So, is there a motion?
So moved.
So, moved by Ron, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Craig. Discussion on the motion.
Just for reference, we have 267,279 in our high-interest savings account, and a little over 10,000 in the low-interest account at Black Hills Community.
Okay. All right,
Sorry, I didn't get who made the motion.
Ron made the motion, seconded by Craig.
Okay, motion by Coe, seconded by Care to authorize the executive committee to move funds from the local low-interest savings account to an account with higher interest.
Yep. We're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Is our treasurer bonded?
Our treasurer?
Yeah.
I am,
He's not the treasurer.
Or the officers generally?
Nobody's bonded
No.
except Dan.
I mean, we're pushing $1 million
Yeah, we
in the
are.
bank. We should probably look at that at some point.
Well, we got an attorney that's a board member. He could probably come up with something.
He's had real success.
Wouldn't hurt to look at, that's for sure. Okay, moving right along. Here, item 14, board approval to request a proposal from a local CPA firm to assist with the migration of spreadsheet financial tracking to business software and provide ongoing assistance as needed. Another item for Cole.
And that's pretty self-explanatory. It kind of goes along with what you just mentioned, Director McGregor, about the fact that we're getting into some bigger numbers in our balance. It'd be good to be involved with some standard business software like QuickBooks Online. We're getting involved with these federal grants where there's going to need to be a pretty good audit trail that would be pretty simple to provide with this business software, both the 319 and the BOR stuff. So it's the executives committees, that's my name, but it's the executive committees, I think, opinion that we need to get some help to get that done.
You make the motion, I'll second it.
So moved.
Second it.
Okay. Motion has been made. Get the motion, Dan?
yeah, motion by Coach, seconded by McGregor to request a proposal from a local CPA firm to assist with migration of spreadsheet financial tracking to business software and provide ongoing assistance as needed.
Okay, discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to item 15, authorize executive committee to renew / modify / consolidate with CDs coming due. I assume this is the Raymond James.
Yeah, we've got,
Ron?
we have 2 CDs coming due at the end of August. One of them is $159,000 at 5.3%, and one of them's $99,000 at 5.3%. So we'll need to do something when those mature. We've done pretty well so far in our efforts to get these CDs bringing in some interest and be good stewards of our public funds. I think we've generated, since we started, about $25,000 in just interest alone. So as the time comes nearer, we wanted to just make sure the board was comfortable with the executive committee working with either Raymond James or, we can examine other options, with local banks to see what their rates are, to be sure we're getting the best return and to have a laddered kind of availability of funds going forward. So I will move as the item 15 language says right there. I'll move that language.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Craig. Discussion on the motion. Dan?
I would like to see us add the wording at the end of that motion to add on an ongoing basis. Basically in line with Scott's previous comment, we talked about this some time ago, whether or not we really need to vote on all these things. On this particular item, there's no proposal on the table to renew X amount for X number of months at X interest rate. I just don't see that the board needs to know those details. We can authorize the executive committee to act on our best behalf on these ones that are coming due, and I think we can do that on an ongoing basis.
With that small change, okay with the motion maker and the second?
Yes.
Okay with me?
Yeah, okay.
Okay? So did you get the motion then?
Well, I think so. I just wonder if we need that. It seems to me like our policies allow this anyway, for the treasurer to do this. But I have to pull it up and read it. I can put it in there.
Yeah, it's just a small change. I think
Just put it on an
it's okay.
ongoing basis.
Yeah. Everybody understand the motion now? All right, we'll go ahead and vote. And all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
See what rate of return we can get from Silverado.
Silver Rock.
You're gonna take the bag of money up?
Okay.
That was an amendment, right? Or did we-
Well, it was just a
No,
friendly.
we just changed it, but the motion maker and the seconder was agreeable to make that change.
Just call it the motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Item 16, Chair's comments. I don't have any. Is there any items from directors? Any items from directors? All right, we'll move on to items from the administrator.
Okay. Bring up my notes here. It'll be short. So if anybody's interested in what's going on East River, there's there've been some changes to two of the water development districts out there, and there's a new map, so I won't go into details. It's basically that circle part there. That's kind of Jay Gilbertson's territory. I was at the Sustainability Committee meeting with Munson there, and won't go into any details there, but I do go to those meetings occasionally. And the budget and levy, I need, what we approved today, I will submit to the state and the county before October 1st. And on the well they got going out here, if anybody's interested, they're down to 33,000 feet now.
3,300 feet.
Or 3,300, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
About what the last one was, that didn't go good for them.
Who is the drilling contractor?
I didn't recognize that contractor. It's not
I think
Taylor.
they're going down to 3,900.
Oh, they are going 3,900?
Anyway, that's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Okay, very good. Items from the public.
I have two.
Harry, you there?
First, I served on a township board. After every annual meeting, we went to the bank to sign the bond insurance form from the insurance agents. Simple deal, cheap, no problem, go do it. It protects you guys.
Okay.
And secondly, Black Hills Environmental Coalition, Isaac Walton League and Citizens Climate Lobby are sponsoring a movie September 20th at Dahl. Social at 6, movie at 7. The movie is The Biggest Little Farm. It's about a couple of people who bought it. I think it was a $200-acre plot. It was pretty sad shape, and they have rehabbed it. And it's the story of how they did that and brought it back to life. So
That was September what?
20th, Friday night.
Friday night. Very good. Anything else, Dave?
Nope.
I just have one question on Green Valley sanitary system. Where is that water being treated, the sewage?
At the city, it will be treated at the city.
That's all I need to know.
Did you sign in?
I did not, I will.
Okay. Any other items from the public?
I'm still just the public.
Just the public. Yeah.
Your director-elect.
New director-elect, you gotta change that director-elect.
That's how you're in the,
You know,
written in there.
that's a funny thing. Secretary of State said that I was a nominee, not a director-elect or anything in my certificate from the state.
Oh, really?
So I must just be running still or something.
They said you're what?
That I was a candidate or a nominee that wasn't yet elected.
So you're on the ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're not on the ballot because there's no other candidate.
Oh.
Yeah, he's not on the ballot.
He's automatic.
Oh,
He
okay.
is,
You know, I remember when I was in your situation, I think that was true, that I was not elected.
Yeah, I got a certificate of nomination, and then I'll get a certificate of election.
After the election.
fall elects.
Yeah.
That must be out.
But I've been nominated because there was no opposition for the primary.
I think that is right.
Okay. I thought it was still.
Okay, so I shouldn't have any concerns then.
Nope, you should be okay.
Appreciate you coming.
Still gonna make you come.
Your only concern is whether you really want to do this now.
That's right. Well, you know, once I get used to the characters on the board, then I'm okay.
It's all about personalities.
It's just getting to know how things run. I had to go back to, I do have one more question.
Okay.
I should have asked this earlier. On your budget, you list USG stream flow gauges at 18,000, but on page 18, we have them listed at 11,725.
Yep.
It's, because it was proposed at 18 as the budget, but then they came with the actual number is the 11.
Okay.
So
So we're already under budget, is that what you're telling me?
We're in the
It's overcovered.
Yes.
Great to know.
Good deal.
Right, the number that had been published in the newspaper, it didn't make sense to change that. I asked Dan the same question. He said, well, we published it that way, so it's best left alone.
One thing we found out, I think that 125,000 for Green Valley is probably gonna be spent in 2025, after listening to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, which is.
But
Which is great.
I'm-
It's been-
I'm ready to have it cleared off our books.
I am
Yeah,
too. Love
tired
it.
of seeing
that's been on there. They proposed it initially when I started on the board,
Yeah.
and that was.
Yeah.
I was glad to hear from you and all the money they got lined up for that project, right?
Yeah, it's good deal. They
Because
did
that's when
good.
they'll be back,
Yeah.
right?
He's
Yeah, a lot.
He's still got people fighting it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
You
you're
always
right.
will. Yeah.
And just
All right.
I already called my phone about it, so.
Meeting adjourned. Thanks for coming, everybody.